Now, hanging out with you today is the youngest Polly in the House, now that Wyatt Roy has gone, at least. Senator James Paterson, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, always a pleasure, Tom.
Now, James, everyone thought the mayhem would be in the Senate with Pauline Hanson and the gang in there, but the House of Reps stole your thunder this week.
They sure did. Typical House. They just want all the glory, all the attention from the much more important work of the Senate.
Yeah, absolutely. Our other guest today is Shalila. It's not Shalila Medora. She's our political reporter. It's Sabine Wolf. 5 stars for entertainment this week in politics, Sabine.
Oh, yeah. Like if you're a political watcher, and even if you're not, you could just sit there, kick back, get out the popcorn, bit of whiskey, and, just ruminate on what on earth is going on in politics.
And you two have ruminated on lots of things. Actually, you've literally roomed together during uni.
Yeah, we were housemates.
True. Small world, politics.
Yep. Amazing. Well, speaking of hot political pairings, I'd love to know who you think makes the hotter political couple from this week. Jackie Lambie and Darren Hinch look fantastic together when they were photographed at the Midwinter Ball. And there was also this super hot chat between Tony Abbott and Pauline Hanson. He's part of it.
Pauline, it's good to catch up with you again after all these years.
Yeah, I think it is great too.
Very strong vibe there, wasn't it? I'd love to hear your theories on what was going on there. Give me a call, 1300 0555 36. Sabine, what do you think was going on?
Look, hard to say. I mean, when it comes to both Abbott and Pauline, I never really know what's going on with either of them. So, it was super awkward, hey? So you're sitting there and they're sitting there in this weird little chat and it's being filmed and I don't really know what the point was.
What was the point of making it public, do you think?
Oh, it's probably got something to do with Abbott announcing that he's talking to the crossbench just making a bit of a play for support. And perhaps he'd actually still be PM, though, if he'd cared to do that when he was in office himself.
As in to work with the crossbench is better.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the thing that I think of from the Abbott Prime Ministership is that he did not have a great relationship with the crossbench. And, now I can see him, though, just trying to peel off support because I think he's still very angry with Turnbull. I really do. Well,
James, you're in the Senate. Surely your youthful charm is going to come in handy when you're trying to corral the crossbench. How did you feel about Tony Abbott getting involved?
Oh, look, more hands to the wheel is a good thing. We can all make progress in there. But I have to say, I can't let pass Darren Hinch's sense of style and fashion. That red scarf, I thought, was really dashing. For a 72-year-old bloke, he knows how to get around.
Okay, and I mean, are you worried about sort of signals from Tony Abbott that he might be making a leadership play by pitching himself as a deal maker in the Senate?
Oh, look, no, I don't think so, Tom. Tony's entitled as any parliamentarian is to have relationships with the crossbench. I think that's a good thing. It wouldn't do us any harm at all to have some better relationships with Pauline and her team and Nick and his team and all the rest.
On the text line, Pauline and Abbott, turn that ship back. James from the Gold Coast. Someone else says, love to hear the off-camera conversation. And we did hear that grab from the SBS doco where Pauline Hanson blamed Tony Abbott and John Howard for putting her in jail for 3 months. It seemed, Sabine, from the way she was talking to Tony Abbott, she was still really angry, but had something to gain from this meeting with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pauline's still really angry about a lot of things. We have since
Muslims?
learned that, well, Muslims, yes, but also Asians are still on the cards. We heard that a couple of months ago. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what she has to gain from it. Probably just national prominence. She's as smart a media manipulator as anyone. She probably realised that it'd get a decent run, keeps her in the papers.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's talk about what went down in the House of Representatives in a bit more detail. Last night, when they thought everything was done and dusted for the first week of Parliament, the government descended into a bit of chaos. Labor really embarrassed them. Shalila Medora, can you explain what happened?
Hey, Tom. Well, Labor wasted absolutely no time in testing the coalition's one-seat majority in the House of Representatives last night. A number of government MPs took a cheeky early mark and left Parliament House before Parliament had properly adjourned. So Labor jumped at the chance and it voted down a motion to formally adjourn Parliament. So some reports say that Labor planned the whole thing by making it look like their MPs were leaving early too. And they did things like apparently put a spotter at the airport so that when coalition MPs left, they could report back to Parley. It was an ambush that really blindsided the Leader of the House, Christopher Pyne.
There's no doubt that what happened late yesterday afternoon was a stuff-up.
It's a massive embarrassment for the government, actually, Tom. Here's the opposition leader, Bill Shorten, explaining.
The opposition was able to win the first vote against a majority government in 52 years.
3 senior ministers missed the vote, including Peter Dutton, who rang Hack for a pre-recorded interview on his way to the airport.
Yeah.
He did manage to make it back to Parley after Labor won its first vote, so he was there for subsequent votes. But the Justice Minister, Michael Keenan, wasn't so lucky. He was in the air when the shenanigans kicked off. Here he is offering his apologies on AM this morning.
Well, I take full responsibility for that, Michael. It was my decision, and I've been in the House for 12 years and I've never missed a division, and I won't be missing any in future.
Yeah, look, he certainly won't. The Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, has read MPs who missed the vote the right act.
Last night was embarrassing. There's no doubt it was a wake-up call. In fact, I'm very disappointed that members left when they shouldn't have left, but it will not happen again.
Michael Keenan said it was a stunt and that Labor is playing political games, but we can expect this kind of game playing until the next election.
That was Shalala Medora on the text line. Loving Parliament at the moment. I love all the sly tactics, makes it interesting. Someone else says, if my staff left early and something like this happened, they would lose their jobs. What a disgrace. I'd love to hear from you. What's your take on this situation? Is it karma for the government who were so aggressive when they were in opposition? I mean, does this show the government's so-called stable working majority is not really that stable at all? Or do you think Labor are playing games and need to get over the election result and just get out of the way and let the government govern? Give me a call, 1300 0555 36, 1300 0555 36. James, were you disappointed that your colleagues left early?
Oh, Tom, look, there's no spinning this one. Not that I would ever try to spin to you, of course, but this is pretty embarrassing. As the PM said, it's very frustrating and disappointing.
But this is what people do all the time on Thursday nights in Canberra.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of colleagues are keen to get home to their families and their electorates and like to be back in their home electorate on a Friday to do a bit of work there. But I would say one thing about this, Tom, which is that Labor's doing a bit of a victory lap today on this. They're briefing the media about how clever they were and how carefully planned this was.
The spotter at the airport, I like that.
Spotter at the airport, someone walking through the corridors with his bags to give the impression he was going home. I mean, frankly, that's pretty low and that's pretty cheap. I'd rather they spent their time and energy on more productive things. What happened last night didn't affect any of the lives of your listeners. Didn't to borrow a phrase, didn't save a dollar from the budget or find a new job for anyone. It is pretty cynical politics, and it's one of the reasons why I think Australians are very cynical about their politicians.
Well, speaking of cynical politics, James, let's go back to May 2013 when Labor MP Michelle Rowland was talking about her sick daughter and trying to get the government to give her a pair in the lower house so that she could take leave.
She's on antibiotics, not quite eating properly. I put in a leave application request just to be able to leave the parliament at 6 p.m. and that was declined. I think it's unreasonable. If it's a mistake and they would like to revisit it on reflection, they would like to grant me a pair, I will say thank you very much and I will book the first flight home after 6 o'clock tonight.
Now, Michelle Rowland there, and eventually she was granted a pair after Warren Entsch, the government MP, read about this in the paper. But the coalition played a lot of hardball during the Gillard minority government days. So is it karma for you guys, James?
Well, I think that you're right, it was a mistake. It shouldn't have been refused, and I'm glad that when they thought about it more carefully, they reflected on that and changed the view and granted her the pair that she should have been granted in the first place. All of us have a responsibility collectively as politicians, if we want Australians to have faith in their institutions, to lift the standard a bit. Of course, there's going to be partisan politics. That's what we're all in for in part. But, I think we can rise above the really petty stuff like that.
Bennett from Canberra, how have you read the political games, the Game of Thrones in Canberra?
Yeah, look, I think it was a move done too quickly. Parliament's first week of sitting, and then something like this happens. If they'd waited a little bit, it would have been a big wake-up call for the coalition.
Like they could have actually got some meaningful legislation snuck through the House in this way?
I don't know, because they probably would have had more members in there if it was meaningful legislation. But since they've done it at the outset, the coalition's not likely to make a mistake like this ever again.
Well, they've said that they definitely won't do that again. Bennett, thanks so much for the call. Sabine, what do you make of Bennett's read?
Yeah, I actually, it's interesting he says that because the coalition, I don't think, had a really great week otherwise. I found them talking about, gay marriage and just things that are not 18C, exactly, things that are not the economic narrative that Turnbull wants to talk about. So, they had a really bad week already. it might throw them, but, I tend to agree with Bennett. Save it up for the second or third week of sitting.
On the text line, someone's taking issue with what you said, James, a moment ago. This doesn't affect your listeners. What the F? A banking royal commission could be amazing for the country. What do you make of that, James?
Well, what Labor was doing wasn't actually trying to genuinely get up a banking royal commission. They weren't really
They almost
doing that.
did, didn't they? Only needed one or two more votes to pass the lower house.
Well, what the real votes were on was actually about whether the Parliament adjourn or not. The government was trying to adjourn as it normally does on a Thursday evening.
But they were pushing towards a vote on the Royal Commission.
Yeah, and look, they had no prospect of actually getting up. They don't actually have the numbers for that. And I'm grateful that they didn't, because I think it's a bad idea, and I think it'd be damaging to our economy and to the banking industry, which is very important. But, I mean, the game playing doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't matter how many votes we have, how close they get, that's not going to change anyone's life.
Andrew's called in from Sydney. Andrew, what do you make of this? Do you think this is karma for the coalition, or do you think Labor need to let them govern?
I think what Labor did was a bit of a waste, but at the same time you have to remember that politicians are supposed to be there to represent us, and whether it's a trivial thing or whether it's a major issue, they should be present in Parliament. That's their job.
And I mean, if they'd been there for weeks on end, working through lots of tough legislation, you could imagine they'd want to get home early on a Thursday night, but this was their first week back.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen is, not that I watch it constantly, but on some pretty serious issues, they have been, especially on the Liberal side of things, they weren't present in debate. And then I think it was possibly gay marriage, and there was a minimal representation, and how disrespectful that might have been.
Yeah, interesting point. Thanks for the call, Andrew. On the text line, this is the same mob that organised the census. Our country's being run by amateurs. Someone else says, disruptive stunts. How about the 100 attempts to pass a vote of no confidence on Julia Gillard? Maybe you just stay at work on your 3-day week. Kel from Goulburn. You are listening to Triple J's Hack Program. We're talking about the shambles that went down in Parliament last night. And I imagine one of our guests is James Paterson, a Liberal Senator. James, that you were disappointed. This drew attention away from Senator Sam Dastyari's troubles, the Labor senator. He's copping massive heat for getting a Chinese company to pay a $1,600 travel bill for him. He has moved to pay it back, although he tried to give it to a charity who said no thanks. Here's how he defended what he did.
The declaration related to the payment of a $1,670.82 bill. On reflection, I should have paid that amount myself.
Sam Dastyari there, and he's copping serious heat. He was on the front page of the Australian today. Here's some of what the Prime Minister had to say about him.
Bill Shorten and Sam Dastyari have to explain Sam Dastyari's receipt of money. Was this cash for comment?
Malcolm Turnbull there, and what he's talking about when he says cash for comment is that Sam Dastyari had stood apart from Labor's position on the South China Sea, saying we need a more hands-off approach to what China's doing there. So people are questioning his integrity now, whether he's been influenced by these kinds of payments. I'd love to know what you think. Should Sam Dastyari have to stand down from Labor's shadow front bench? Has it seriously damaged his reputation, or do you think this will blow over? 1300 0555 36. James Paterson is kind of your arch rival in a way. You're the two young hotshots in the Senate. Should he stand down from the shadow cabinet?
Oh, Sam's hair is much stronger than mine. No, very seriously, Tom, this is really worth explaining in just a little bit of detail. Some people have kind of confused this issue this week and said it's about political donations. This was not a political donation. Sam Dastyari owed the Commonwealth a personal debt because he exceeded his travel budget. His travel budget was over by $1,600. And he's got someone who is also a political donor who does have links to the Chinese government to pay that personal debt for him. And it's not an insignificant sum of money.
Well, let's talk about money. James, how much would Sam Dastyari be getting paid roughly?
I think it's about $200,000 a year that Sam would be on.
So $1,600, it's not worth sacrificing your integrity over, is it?
No, I certainly wouldn't think so. I certainly wouldn't be advising people to do that in that instance.
The thing that really interests me, right, is Sam Dastyari is the face of Labor's big corporate social responsibility push. The Banking Royal Commission, it's all Sam. But if you're going to do that, you need to be squeaky clean.
Yeah, he's an ethics crusader.
Exactly. There cannot be anything unethical in your conduct because someone's going to find it and they're going to report it because that's what they do.
So how damaging is this for him then, Sabine?
I think it's pretty damaging. It does seem to be one of those stories that has got cut through. Certainly New South Wales has come out of ICAC and you hear all of these stories all the time. And I think it's just one of those things that permeates with the public. And I think there will be a cloud over him for quite some time.
Sam from Wagga, what do you think?
Well, he's essentially taken a bribe, and now he defends the foreign policies that China has put out, and now he's taking money off them to pay off his own debts. Like, that's a bribe, and he should be removed from his position.
Yeah, it's a very strong claim to say that he's making a bribe. I mean, I don't know if you can directly provide evidence that those two things are linked. It certainly puts a cloud over his integrity. Do you think he can make a comeback from here? Do you think he should be just stepping down from the front bench? Or do you think he can just apologise and move on from this?
I don't think a simple apology would be something that he would be able to, would be enough to get him away from this. Yeah.
And it's not going away.
No, that's right. Because the people of Australia, we're putting our trust in these people, and they're meant to be transparent, and then they're doing completely underhanded things like this, and then only when it comes out in the public, they say, oh, perhaps I shouldn't have done that, and maybe I won't do it again.
Okay, yeah, interesting point. Thanks for the call, Sam. James, be good to get into a bit more detail with you, because this is not the only way that Chinese companies are giving money to politicians. The ABC reported that between 2013 and 15, Chinese-linked companies and individual donors poured more than $5 million into Liberal and Labor Party coffers, so both sides of politics there. Can you explain, why it's okay for this money to go to your own party?
Well, I think Wayne Swan has called for a review of whether foreign nationals should be allowed to donate. That's something unusual about Australian politics. Most countries do ban foreign donations, and I think that should be looked at. But at the same time, I think we should be careful not to demonise particularly Chinese Australians who want to get involved in the political process. They have just as much right to get involved as anyone else. Their views are just as legitimate as anyone else, and they're entitled to use the political system as anyone else does to try and contribute to causes that they're passionate about and they believe in. So, I strongly defend private donations to political parties. I think that's a really healthy thing. I think it would be a worry if we became completely reliant on public funds, because I think, first of all, I think we can use taxpayers' money better in other ways. But actually, political parties being funded by the public actually gives the incumbent political parties a major advantage over any new or smaller parties. So private donations actually does level the playing field. I think it is an important thing to do, but it has to have public confidence, and this is certainly undermining that.
All right, on the text line, another week, and still this government has done F4. Doesn't look great in Canberra at the moment. Hopefully they can get some traction for, I guess, the good of our nation progressing. Let's change gears a little bit and talk makeup.
The beautiful story behind Alicia Keys' new #NoMakeup commitment. At the 2016 VMAs, Alicia's look was the talk of the red carpet. Barefaced and gorgeous, without a drop of makeup, Alicia sparked a conversation about the cultural pressure women feel to be perfect.
I still believe in that dream, that one day our nation is going to rise up and finally be completely about the true meaning of this creed, that all women and men are created equal.
Triple J.
Alicia Keys there, who's an R&B superstar, in case you don't know, and she took the campaign of no makeup a step further this week, as you heard, at the MTV Music Awards. And she wrote a big article about this a few months ago, so it's something she's been thinking about for a while. She wrote that she doesn't want to cover up anymore, not my face, not my mind, not my soul, not my thoughts, not my dreams, not my emotional growth. And she's written a new song called When a Girl Can't Be Herself, and some of the lyrics go like, in the morning from the minute that I wake up, what if I don't want to put on all that makeup? Who says I must conceal what I'm made of? Maybe all this Maybelline is covering my self-esteem. And I'd love to hear from you. As a woman, do you feel like you have to wear makeup? And guys, do we face similar pressures about our appearance? Give me a call, 1300 0555 36. Sabine, do you think it's probably a bit easier for Alicia Keys to be able to say this given she's already a megastar?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if I don't put makeup on in the morning, people ask me if I'm sick. So
Really?
Yeah, really. So I naturally have very pale skin and shadowy eyes. And so for me, like when I put on makeup, it's kind of like putting on a suit, right? There are probably other jobs that I work in a professional setting. There are probably other jobs that I could do where I didn't have to do that. But if I don't fill in my eyebrows, it's kind of like I'm going underdressed.
And how do you feel about that pressure?
Look, I don't know. It's always a really tricky one for women because I don't think that you should feel compelled to, to perform to that societal standard if you don't want to. But also, I've made a choice about where I work. There are certain things that are expected you'll dress professionally, you'll wear shoes that aren't, sneakers into work, and putting on makeup is kind of part of that as well. But, you should be able to choose, I guess, is what I want to say.
Well, James, you're a senator now, and I've seen you in the flesh. You dress pretty sharp. You keep your hair nice and tidy. Is that any different from women, I guess, facing this expectation to wear makeup?
That's very kind, Tom, and I can confirm I don't wear makeup unless I'm in a TV studio and it's being applied to me by a makeup artist, but otherwise I'm makeup free. Look, mate, I take a pretty libertarian view on this. I mean, if people want to wear it and that makes them feel good and they...
But is there the freedom for women to really choose?
Look, I think Sabine's right. It does depend on context. I think there's certainly some places where they wouldn't bat an eyelid if you did or didn't, and there's some where it would be treated as a bit unusual if you came without makeup on. So, look, my view is I think there's much more important things about people's work performance than whether they're wearing makeup or not, but that's just me.
On the text line, I love Alicia Keys. She is so on point. What a legend. Kate, what do you think of her statement? Kate in Canberra, you there? No? All right. Kylie, what about you?
Oh, it's Kyle.
Oh, Kyle. What do you reckon?
Hey, Tom, man. I've seen it this morning. I thought that's pretty awesome, but in reality, I think you got Alicia Keys. She's pretty much got the perfect face. It's sort of a bad example of the average woman being able to go out without makeup, you know what I mean? I remember 5 years ago when Jennifer Hawkins was on the front of that magazine, non-airbrushed, and it's not an indication of the average person. Not everyone can just look that good. I think in the cruel world, you'll go out without makeup and people will go, oh, yuck, or something's wrong with it, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for your thoughts on the text line. Makeup is oppressive, like the short back and sides. Lots of guys calling in on this one. Ivan, what's your point of view?
I just don't understand. I think that Alicia Keys is a beautiful woman, and I think there's a lot of beautiful women within society that they feel like they've been pressured to kind of keep up with the standards. And, one of my friends, she posted on Facebook, she lives down the Gold Coast. She's like, I feel naked if I go to the shops without fake lashes on. And it's from a dude's point of view, you don't really get to know someone, how someone really looks if their whole face is caked on with makeup. It's kind of a false lead-in for a lot of people. And, most guys, to be honest, don't actually give a shit how much makeup a woman wears.
Well, is it necessarily about guys anyway? What guys think is about what other women think?
I know, but it's more about, women putting pressure on other women as well. And that's even worse than men, because women should understand that, women should just wear whatever they want and stuff. So,
Sabine, is that part of it, the expectations of other women?
It's also what you're comfortable with personally, though. So, I think it's just as bad to say to people, you shouldn't wear all that makeup. You'd look so much prettier without it, than to say, wow, what happened to your face?
But, I don't know. I just don't understand why, we should have the freedom to do whatever we want. And,
I totally agree with you.
Why is it even a topic of discussion? People should just feel free to do what they want, not be tied up by someone else's perception of what they have to stand up to.
Yeah, dog. Thanks, Ivan.
Yeah, mate. If everyone thought like you, the world would be so much better. Can I just say that?
More Ivans in the world. Ivan, thanks for the call. Ali in Melbourne, you're a makeup artist. What's your point of view on this one?
Yeah, I am. It's a living for me to, be making people beautiful. And I think makeup is something that makes you feel great about yourself. And no, I don't wear it every day. And you shouldn't be wearing it every day. And you should only be wearing it if it does make you feel good about yourself. And if it makes you feel like, you're not good if you're not wearing it, then I know that's something that you sort of have to look internally at. It's not what you're putting on your face that sort of defines your self-worth, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we're talking about when you don't do it and the impact of that.
I think, not everyone wears makeup every day, and I think it's not really an issue. If you don't wear makeup, then good for you. If you do, great for you. Who cares?
Great. Thanks so much for the call on the text line. In my job, it's part of our contract for women to wear makeup. We get sent home if we don't have a full face on. The males in the company have no requirements. I hate it. James, would that be a breach of, the Sexual Discrimination Act?
Good question. I don't know, Tom, to be honest. I guess you'd have to really demonstrate that it was relevant to their work in some way for it to be legitimate, and I can't really imagine why it would be. I guess there are some companies where they feel it might affect their brand, but I'm not sure on the legal question.
All right, you're listening to James Paterson there, who's a Liberal senator, and we've also got Sabine Wolf in the studio, who is a political commentator. It's the Friday Shake-Up where you get your say on the big stories of the week. Lots of people texting in on the makeup discussion. You should never be expected to wear makeup. Shoes are a lot different than makeup, even in a professional setting. Good point. Someone else says, I'm always told I'm sick without makeup. Once my friend didn't recognise me at first because I don't naturally have dark lashes or brows. Someone else says, no, I don't wear makeup. I still define myself as a professional, but I feel ugly when I put makeup on.
Hack. If it's ranked high or low, I don't really mind.
I guess that was one of the things I looked at was, the university's ranking one of the best universities in the world.
Hack. Triple J. The Good Universities Guide came out this week and they give up to 5-star ratings on a range of criteria like graduate employment outcomes, salary outcomes, student experience, staff to student ratios. It's a very hard decision to work out which university to go to, especially when you're coming out of Year 12 and the whole thing is very new to you. I'd love to hear from you. Did you choose the wrong uni? And what was the basis of your decision that led you to the wrong uni? I'd love to hear your stories. Give me a call, 1300 0555 36, 1300 0555 36. Now, you guys not only chose the same uni, Melbourne Uni, you chose the same share house to live in.
I think we actually did the same course as well.
Yes, I think we did.
Was it all a big mistake?
I don't know. He's a senator and I say shit about politics on the radio sometimes, so I guess it's kind of worked out. But no, I don't think it was a mistake for me. It was the right thing.
How did you make the decision? Was it all about prestige or was it actually about the quality of the education, or did the two go hand in hand?
Look, I thought the two went hand in hand at the time, and I'm glad to say that it was borne out that way. But I know a lot of people who have made the wrong decision. And I guess, the advice I'd give people is make sure that it's actually the course you want to do first. There's so much variation. Like every journalist I know, for example, half of them seem to have gone to Charles Sturt in Bathurst, and sure, that might not be like the University of Sydney or the University of Melbourne, but it does have a really, really great journalism program, and they're obviously doing something right. So,
and it also has a different kind of campus life, because lots of people move to Bathurst from Sydney and other places, and there's a real kind of unity in the student culture there too.
Exactly. So you've really got to look at what you want, and sure, prestige and ranking can be really important, but just make sure that it's the right course for you, I think.
Chrissy, how did you decide on your uni?
Well, I was really inspired by my drama teacher when I was in high school, and she went to QT in Brisbane, so I just decided that was where I was going to go as well. So I had a really positive experience there for my first degree and in drama. And then later when I decided to go into nursing, I tried going to a different uni and I didn't enjoy it as much and like the culture as much, so I went back to QT because I'd done my first degree there and had such a good time.
Right, and so what did you realise was the key factor that was most important to you?
I guess I liked the familiarity, and I guess once I started asking again about how QT fed, I knew what it was like as a campus and a culture, so I knew that was going to be a draw card. But then I started asking specifically people about doing that course, and it seemed like everyone there was having a positive time doing nursing. So I was like, okay, well, that's great. I know that I'm going to feel comfortable there, and now I know that the education is good too. So it was kind of pretty easy.
Yeah, cool. One person says my uni is full of socialists, but I guess that's true everywhere.
Sadly, yes.
I don't know any that aren't.
Jessica, you got it wrong. What happened?
Well, I was doing, I picked education and I was in Brisbane, and I sort of picked a university that I thought sort of had a very good reputation. But it really doesn't have a reputation for education, I guess. That's not really where the money is invested in terms of that sort of area. It was more in terms of the sciences, engineering, business, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's so much to work through, so much information on so many different, I guess, criterion that to work it out for the first time when you're leaving school is so hard. Jessica, great to have you there on the phone. Thanks for joining us. And we are hitting the end of the show, which is sad. We could keep talking. James Paterson, Liberal Senator, thank you for joining us. And Sabine Wolf, political commentator, thank you for joining us. And a big shout out to the hardworking Hack team, producers Claire Aird, Carla Arnold, and the rest of the reporters. Linda Mariano, what is happening?